I've continued. I'm still reading On Tyranny. I read a chapter a week. It's a great book. Let me just bring it up for you. On Tyranny by Timothy Schneider. 20 lessons from the 20 lessons from the 20th century about tyranny. It's brilliant. It's wonderful. It's very simple, and yet a lot to chew on. Okay, so I'm reading chapter 10. Chapter 10 is about truth, and in chapter 10, the author describes our source of truth. It talks about the media. It talks a little bit about doublespeak. That sort of the truth can be twisted. The truth can be almost poisoned, like with a poison pill. That as soon as you adopt the truth, you must all of a sudden it's used against you. As I was reading it, and I apologize, it was just the way my brain works. But I began really thinking about the church. And I wasn't necessarily thinking about where we receive our truth from, but I was thinking that the church, God help us, I believe we have, I think we're gifted. I think we've been given a gift that if we use it as a litmus test, we can determine whether or not what we are being told is worth our while, what we are being instructed to do is the right thing to do, what we are being told to feel, what we are being told to believe is the right thing. And ultimately, I think it's also a matter that, because in a time of tyranny, it's never just the tyrant. There's always those who are being disobedient. There's always those who are willing to get in good trouble, to stand against the tyrant, to speak against the tyrant, to stand up for their brothers and sisters who are being harmed by the tyrant. And it's important for us because we need to know who to trust. We need to know who to trust. We need to know who to listen to. We need to know whose message to absorb. We need to know whose message to own. We need to know who to get behind. And not for nothing, but we need to know we need to know how to figure out who the tyrant is. Ultimately, right? Like it's easy for us sometimes. It's easy for us when we can say, that guy's absolutely the tyrant. Absolutely. But there's always the chance. As slim as it may be, I think it's a responsible thing for us to continuously ask, am I the tyrant? Am I following the tyrant? Okay, wait a second. They keep saying they're not the tyrant. They keep pointing their fingers at us. Is it possible? Is it at all possible that I could be wrong? That they're the freedom fighters and I'm on the wrong side of this? I'm not saying that we are. I'm saying that it's the responsible thing for us to do is every now and then check ourselves. Every now and then ask ourselves, where am I on this arc? Where am I on this trajectory? How many people have stood up against tyranny only to become tyrants themselves? How many people have stood up against selfish government, against monarchies, only to bring in laws and policies that were quite tyrannical? I mean, we see it, right? What is it? The president would say nobody in the history of the world has ever done more for free speech. I don't know if you've ever said that, but it sounds like something that he might have said. And yet, any university that has illegal protests is going to lose all their government funding, right? Or we should censor these reporters for their opinions about this thing, or we should sue and we should shut down these media outlets because they said something or they edited something or I think they edited something. So It's always possible for the freedom fighter. It's always possible for the freedom fighter in their fight against tyranny to bring in tyrannical practices themselves. So it's important for us to always be introspective. It's important for us to always ask ourselves, is it possible that I'm the bad guy now? Is it possible that I've always been the bad guy? Is it possible that they're right? So the church, however, coming back to it, I think we actually have this really wonderful gift that we can use to determine whether or not we're the tyrant. We have this really beautiful gift that can help us determine which message to embrace, which faction to embrace, who to get behind, who to follow. And it's that dude. It's our I forget who it was that said it earlier, but it's our woke dude. It's Christ. It's Jesus. Right? And it's not only him as a person, and it's not only him as the Son of God. I know, like here in this community, not everybody here is a Christian. And I appreciate that, and I love you for that. I do. But in his message, there is a purity of there's a purity of heart. There's a ridiculous radical love, and that becomes our standard to live by. And that becomes the thing we bounce everything off of. That becomes the thing we weigh everything against. So someone comes along and says, "This is what we have to do," and we go, "Wait, does that fit?" No, that doesn't fit. So I'm not following that, because there's nothing in Jesus that is tyrannical. Nothing. You can say what you like about God, and people have different opinions. God is this, and God is like that, and blah, blah, blah. Sure, I'm not going to argue with any of that. But there is nothing tyrannical in Jesus. Well, but he flipped tables. Yeah, he flipped tables, but that wasn't a matter of being a fascist. That wasn't a matter of being a tyrant. That wasn't a matter of being an authoritarian. That was him getting angry at people who should have known better, but we're using God's name and the practice of this religion to take advantage of others. There's nothing in Jesus' message that is tyrannical, because Jesus' message continuously calls you and I to look outside of ourselves at the people who are most in need in our world. At no point does Jesus ever say, take care of yourselves. At no point does Jesus ever say, take care of people like you. At no point does Jesus ever say, take care of your way of life. At no point does Jesus ever say, take care of doing things the way that they've always been done. At no point does Jesus say, take care of power, hold on to power, go get power, hold on to power, take care of power, maintain power, hold, wield power. No. In every way, Jesus tells us to be willing to sacrifice of ourselves for the other, for the people who are most in need in our community, to the most vulnerable people around us. No tyrant does that. Some may speak that way. You think of Gaddafi, Muammar Gaddafi in Libya. He started off saying all the stuff a freedom fighter might say. He started off doing all kinds of stuff. The people trusted him. The people followed him because he was about the people. But if we had listened close, it turned out to be about him. Looking at Jesus, looking at the world through the lens of Jesus Christ. It'll help us determine whose truth we should embrace. It will help us determine, again, who to get behind, who to follow, who to trust, whose ways to embrace, whose ideals to put stock in, whose to reject. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm terrified sometimes. Because tyranny comes wrapped wrapped by the right, and it comes wrapped by the left. It's different, but it's not hard. It's not hard to look through history and find where people with wonderful left-leaning ideals devolved into very right-leaning authoritarian practices. And I don't ever want to be that guy. I don't ever want to make that mistake. But I can't trust my own judgment. I can't trust my own judgment. I got to trust something bigger than myself. And then that's what I would say for the church is trust that teaching. Which again, I happily say, I don't understand how so many in the Christian church can look at the policies that are being brought forth, the cuts that are just being, that are being made with a dull axe. I don't understand how so many in the church can defend these, how they can get behind them. I don't understand how so many in the church can tolerate and uplift and support people who are okay causing the suffering of the most vulnerable members of their community. My guess is at no point are they looking at Jesus' teachings and Jesus' message. They've just simply trusted their own ability, they've trusted their own ability to discern who to follow. They haven't weighed those ideas. They haven't weighed those ideals. They haven't weighed those practices, those behaviors against the message of Jesus, the call of Jesus, the life that Jesus led, and the life that Jesus calls us to lead. Amen.